Joining me now is Professor of Historical Studies at SUNY Empire State College and author of Obama's America, a transformative vision of our national identity, Ian Reifowitz. Ian, good to see you.
Always good to see you.
All right, Ian, let's talk about this debate. We talked earlier in the show about who won. I think it's a partisan draw here. Most Democrats think Hillary won. Most Republicans think Trump won. So let me ask you this. What, in your opinion, was the moment of impact, the moment that may have changed somebody's mind about who they're going to vote for?
Well, I don't have any amazing insights here. I think it was the moment where Trump refused to say categorically that when the election results did come in and were final, that he would necessarily and 100% accept them. A lot of people who were commenting last night, including Steve Schmidt, who was McCain's campaign manager, said it was unacceptable. Even Hugh Hewitt, who is a well-known conservative, called it a disqualifying remark. I don't think there was anything else that was said that would really change people's minds, but I think a lot of people would be concerned about casting their vote for somebody who had said something like that. Yeah.
Right, and I got to tell you, and I actually don't understand the uproar about that because, not to sound too much like Hillary Clinton here, but what difference does it make if Trump accepts the results of the election if he loses? It's not like he's the outgoing president that's refusing to leave the Oval Office. It makes no difference whatsoever what he thinks of the results if he loses.
You know, that's a good point. I would say, however, that Donald Trump, like it or not, has a lot of followers. We've seen Trump's followers do things that have been disruptive. We had, I mean, you want to go back about a year ago, there were a couple of Trump people who beat up a Latino man in Boston and said they were inspired to do it by Trump. You know, that's two guys. But I would be concerned, frankly, if Trump got on TV or got out on Twitter and said, hey, everybody, take to the streets. It's time for the pitchforks to come out because Hillary really didn't win. She stole it from me. I think there would be more than two people who would listen to him. And that does concern me as somebody who cares about our democracy. And
right, right. And I, as a conservative, I would hate to see that too. I would condemn that immediately. There's no place in a republic such as ours for violence at any sort of political demonstration. None whatsoever. To be honest, I do not think Donald Trump would call for that. I think if he lost and there was reasonable doubt in his mind that it was due to voter fraud or due to a similar circumstance that happened in the 2000 elections with George Bush and Al Gore, I could see him doing something in the legal system, but I don't think that he'd call for pitchforks. And I think that Democrats who are insinuating that he incites violence clearly haven't seen the James O'Keefe video that proves that much of that violence at Trump rallies was actually paid for by Hillary Clinton when she hired the agitators to actually pick fights with Trump people.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. I'm sorry to say this, but most of what you said is not accurate. Hillary Clinton didn't hire anybody, A. B, James O'Keefe is a proven liar who's been convicted.
How is he a liar?
Well, first of all, he's been convicted. His last investigation led to his conviction of a crime.
Right, but the conviction of the crime was that he entered a governmental area, government property with a camera, but it wasn't for falsifying anything that he's done. He just walked into the building in Louisiana.
Yes, it's a strike against him. But about the lies, which I'm happy to talk about, you remember one of his so-called investigations was of NPR, and he had some executives from NPR on record. Well, it turns out, thanks to Glenn Beck and his crack staff at The Blaze, that the raw footage of the tapes from James O'Keefe said something very different than the edited tapes of James O'Keefe. We saw something similar with Acorn. In fact, if James O'Keefe told me that the sun had risen, I'd look out the window before I believed him. I don't believe anything he has to say. There's no raw footage of this most recent incident. So therefore, I'll take it with more than one grain of salt.
Okay, well, in regards to Acorn, I believe that he was charged with something due to privacy, not editing, with the tapes there. But I'll accept your premise just for a second, even if I disagree with it, and we'll just go by the words of the consultants that were in these videos. So you said before that they have no ties to Hillary Clinton. Well, let's look at Scott Fovel's actual quotes here. Scott Fovel, he was the guy in the video. He worked for Democracy Partners, and he was subsequently fired, by the way, from his position. But he says, this is a direct quote, no edits whatsoever. He said, the campaign pays the DNC pays Democracy Partners pays the Fovel Group, and the Fovel Group, whom he worked for, goes and executes the stuff on the ground. I mean, you can't be clearer than that when it comes to the money trail.
First of all, I didn't say that. I said Hillary Clinton didn't pay. Okay, so Hillary Clinton didn't pay anybody. This guy may or may not have said anything that resembles what Mr. O'Keefe has put together.
Why was he fired then?
Because what happens is when somebody does something stupid and somebody says something that looks bad and it's 3 weeks before the election, you get rid of them. Because that's easier than dealing with explaining James O'Keefe and his false edits. This guy's not necessary. He's 4 levels removed from anybody involved with the campaign. He also talked about the fact that there's no coordination allowed. But you know what? At the end of the day, I don't know if any of the words that O'Keefe has him saying were true. That entire segment could have begun with, let's talk about how campaigns work in fantasy land. And then all that other stuff got said. I wouldn't put that past O'Keefe.
Right, but this was not a low-level staffer, though. The other gentleman in the video is Bob Creamer of Democracy Partners. He also resigned from his position, and he's no low-level staffer. He met with President Obama 47 times in the last 8 years. That's once every 4 months. I was just talking about that in the previous segment to this. That's not a low-level staffer, and he also was relieved of his position. You don't do that if there's not some semblance of guilt there, even for appearance.
Okay, he wasn't relieved of his position. He resigned. So he fell on his sword rather than allow the story to go on. Look, there's a reason why I shouldn't say nobody, there's a reason why the mainstream media is not reporting that Hillary Clinton did X, Y, and Z, because nobody believes James O'Keefe. Nobody. He's not credible. He's not credible. The WikiLeaks situation is embarrassing because of the fullness of all that's come out there. I don't think any of us want 30 weeks or 30 months of our emails coming out.
Right.
And they did have some stuff about the foundation. I'm sure you've talked about that. But only one foundation here has been convicted of a crime or been forced to pay a penalty. That's the Trump Foundation. The Hillary Clinton or the Bill or Hillary or whoever Clinton Foundation it is hasn't
right.
been
It changes names. It changes names every couple of months. Ian, we're almost out of time, but let me ask you one last thing. If Hillary Clinton didn't do anything wrong, if she didn't pay the DNC, to pay Democracy Partners, to pay the Foval Group, to execute this and incite violence, why isn't she or anybody in her campaign denying this? She didn't even deny it during the debate last night when Chris Wallace asked her about it.
You know, that's a good question. I think it's about strategy. When something is so absurd, you don't even dignify it with a response. There wasn't any this because there isn't any evidence that this happened because all we have is somebody on tape whose voice is chopped into pieces, but we don't know actually what he said, and we don't even know if what he said is what he did. Trump said he touched women's private parts. We don't know that he did it.
Right, then why does the mainstream media give credibility to that tape then? You couldn't even see Trump on that tape.
You couldn't see Trump. I saw him walk off the bus. I saw him hug.
Well, we saw this guy's face while he was saying the words.
That's right. Well, either they're both liars or they're both telling the truth. Either way, I think Hillary Clinton's going to be fine.
Well, I guess we'll have to see about that. This seems to me, like I was saying in the previous segment, this is the October surprise of all October surprises. Ian,